Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is January 20th, 2023, and this is episode 562. Today we're looking at what they're calling Nightfall. It's a double feature, meaning there's two stories in here. This is issue number one. It comes out from Vault Comics at a whopping $7.99. I might say $7.99. That's a lot for a comic book. However, there are two stories in here. They're each 28 pages each. That's 56 pages of content, even though they're claiming there's 64 pages. I don't count title pages and filler as content, really. So with that, let's get into this. We'll look at the Cemeterians first. That is the first of the two double features. The other story is called Denizen. And let me get to the credits because they stuck them way at the end of the story. There you go, Cemeterians. The writer is Daniel Kraus. The artist is Mon House. The colorist is Kurt Michael Russell. And the letterer is Jim Campbell. Now, this story is kind of like, in a ways, how should we say it? A lot like an X-Files story. We've got a man and a woman investigating. They've got two different backgrounds. They both have similar things that they're very interested in as far as paranormal. The woman is a reverend. They've come together to work together. I believe the man is a scientist or a writer or something like that. And their case involves bones showing up in inanimate objects, such as baseballs or teddy bears, things like that. There's bones from people, and somehow they got in there. They're transferred somehow. So that's the main story. Now, what I don't like about the story is it really drags on explaining this. I mean, here we start off with the girls getting a CAT scan, and we're like 4 pages in before they find out that there's bones in the teddy bear. You can see a little bit in there, and depending on who it is or what it is, they just kind of show up haphazardly. So the Reverend meets up with this inventor, scientist, writer guy, and he's had similar experiences, so they're checking this out. And then they go back and forth for a number of pages talking about things that have happened where bones have shown up in these inanimate objects, or they're just missing from the people. Like the baseball story, it's a glove. There's a guy playing a concerto, and he opens. Suddenly it starts sounding funky, opens up, and it's full of bones in the piano. Just crazy stuff. A woman's getting married, and suddenly her girder turns into a rib cage, which crushes her. On and on and on. They have these little stories, and it just kind of continues. They go to investigate a site where these bones have been found out in Iowa. It turns out they were moving a cemetery. And when they had to exhume the bodies, they were finding all these bodies had no bones in them. And so they've kind of piled them up in a pile, which is an odd thing to do instead of just putting them in a box. But they push it on the skull and nothing's there. They find this whole pile of bodies and there's no bones in it. And people died at all different times, so there's no clue on what is going on here. And it continues. And this is 28 pages going through. Now they kind of go a little backstory on each other a bit while they're talking, telling their story about how they came to get interested in paranormal things, I guess, as best to put it. And they end up at a hotel. Unfortunately, they can't get 2 rooms, and in the room they do get, it's this Fleabag hotel. It's just one bed inside, so they end up sleeping in the same bed next to each other. And this is where I guess there is some kind of attraction between the two because they both contemplate being intimate with each other. And shockingly, the pillow the woman has been laying on suddenly reveals that there's bones inside, hand bones, and she realizes that it's a 6-fingered hand of a boy that they were talking about earlier that had tormented her as a bully. And that's where we end here. So It is kind of a recommend. I mean, it's really well written, and the art in it is good enough. It's just drawn out so much. I did buy issue 2, so I will be reviewing issue 2 sometime in the near future. Whew. Then we get an intermission. So this is part of the content. It's intermission. See you at the snack stands. Hurry up. Our next feature begins shortly, and that is Denizen. The writers on this are David Andre and Tim Daniel. The artist is Chris Sheehan. I'm sorry. The colorist is Jason Wardy, and letterer is And World Design. Now it starts out in the woods somewhere, and I'm assuming this is sometime in the past, where there's a trailer and a truck pulling it, and this guy's trying to get away from whatever's in this trailer. He finally pulls his hand out, gets away, slams the door, and kind of closes it. In the meantime, he hears, I don't know why he goes back. He gets this huge knife, but he goes back to the trailer and looks, sees something's moving around. He goes close, and it grabs him, thunks his head, and somehow I guess he gets away, and all these arms start coming out, and some people start showing up for whatever reason. They, hey, what's going on? He jumps in the trailer and takes off, leaving the two behind. They're like, what's the heck was that? So this guy's driving on, and they show him with the knife that he had earlier on the thing. He says, no, not yet. And this is where we get the 2-page spread of, it's called The Place of Truth. I guess this is the name of this chapter. And this is really hard to read. I'll zoom in here. I could hardly read this thing. This little line here, I believe, says for Henry. So if you want to freeze that and read it. It's just a passage of a poem by Byron. Nothing that really seemed to me tied into this story too much. So then we get this blended family picked up on vacation, and you know they're going to run into that trailer sooner or later. They have rented an RV, and they're pulling a Jeep. The father and mother, the new father and mothers are, they're really happy together. The older daughter is kind of like okay, and the younger daughter does not like the situation, but she's kind of stuck with it. And everybody seems, the parents seem pretty nice and loving and everything else, and they're just happy that they found someone else to share the rest of their life with, perhaps. We will find out later. So they drive on, and again, there's this long, drawn out, I guess it's supposed to be character development, but it takes forever to get it going. As you can see here, they're in their RV pulling the Jeep. Finally, they get to a campground that features a swimming pool. It's kind of nice, and the kids are kind of getting excited, but the father has other ideas. Says, no, we're gonna camp out under the stars in the wilderness. So they find a place to camp. They're out in Joshua Tree, so if you're familiar with that, it is a very it's a high desert, so it can get pretty warm there, but typically it's got more milder temperatures. However, the weather can change and you can get flash floods, and that's what we get this night. Is they tell some scary stories around the campfire. They generally seem to be having a decent time, and then it starts raining that night, and their RV gets caught partially in the flash flood and marooned. So they wake up the next morning realizing that they can't move their RV. It's stuck. So they take the Jeep back to the campground. They get there and everybody's gone. For whatever reason, all the other patrons are gone except for one strange trailer, which is the trailer we saw in the opening scene. So there's all these little weird things happening. The boy chasing a rat. They still can't get a phone signal out there. This campground seems to be cursed or something. It's never really quite explained. So the guy gets a spot for the night and also trying to arrange a tow for the RV. Meanwhile, the daughter goes to buy a soda pop inside. The son's chasing the rabbit, and the man from the trailer comes up to him and gives him that knife, and it's wrapped in a cloth for whatever reason. Meanwhile, the mother has wandered off into that trailer, and you can see she has gotten grabbed by all these arms and whatnot. The daughter drops her soda that she had just bought, the older daughter, and the boy discovers the knife. And then we get just this montage of things going on, and they're looking for each other, and as the girl is sitting there looking to clean up the mess, she's asked for a broom. So the guy that runs the camp comes out and starts giving her this weird spiel about glass, and this is the father hears that the mom went into the trailer for whatever reason. She was just drawn to it. And then we get this scene, which I'm assuming is inside the trailer, and I don't know if this is what the father can see because he is actually peering through the window or not, but all these people are in there. And then we get the little story about glass from the owner, and he just doesn't seem to care about the mess she's made. He says, all I wanted was a broom. And so I'm assuming this is what's going inside the trailer. Either something's going in her mouth or it's coming out. I'm not sure. It looks like it might be going in, and she's being lifted off the ground. To be continued. So both stories didn't really have any kind of resolution or even seemingly the end of an act. They were kind of left us hanging. But I'm going to recommend it because the writing is good. It's just taken forever to develop in both stories, and I don't like that. Like I said, I bought the second issue. I'll see how that goes. If it takes a turn for the worse, I might have to change my recommendation to a not recommended, but that's the way it goes. So thank you for stopping by and watching this review of Nightfall double feature featuring the Cemeterians and Denizen, the two stories within. As always, please like, please subscribe if you haven't, please leave comments, and we'll see you next time at the Temple of Tomes. This is Indie Comics Jones bidding you adieu.